Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, and I am going to talk about Sharp Objects, Season 1, Episode 8. It is called Milk. It is the finale, and I said Season 1, but it's really just a limited series. Or is it? Apparently, the book author tweeted out something like more soon. We know that Amy Adams is done. I mean, at least she said she was done, and she had no interest in coming back. But, you know, we'll see. That's debate for the end of the show. Full spoilers for this final episode of Sharp Objects. And obviously, I mean, you kind of want to jump straight to the end, right? You want to talk about the outcome and kind of work your way back a little bit. Some standout scenes, of course. I mean, I think the opening with Camille coming to the dinner table and being, you know, told to sit down by Alan, who's kind of asserting himself, probably because he feels helpless, he feels weak, and he wants to try and assert some power again, and everything there. Very, very awkward scene as it's been, but I mean, the episode ultimately becomes Camille, in an effort to save Amma / take the hit, if you will, to prove what she's done, feigns being sick so that Adora will take care of her and give her the blue jar, the blue bottle of medicine that she makes. And we get, you know, a good chunk of this episode. It's a little bit of a shorter episode, and the first sort of half or so is Camille being taken care of, being sick and getting worse and worse, and Adora finally seeming to be happy with her because she's been allowed to take care of her. And, you know, the scene in the bath in particular really stood out because Adora kind of talks about her mother and how she would drive her out into the woods and leave her there, and she'd be like, oh, we all have shitty childhoods, but, you know, you have to get over it, or it's just being selfish. And it's like, okay, right, so your mother didn't want you, so you feel like you need your children to need you. You want to feel needed because you didn't feel like you were needed as a kid. So, you know, there's that stuff there, but I think the big talking points here really come from the ending. I will say the giant relief, because it really feels like, oh, is Camille going to like die here to, like, you know, prove a point? Like, you know, eventually Willis and Vickery and co will come looking because she's missing, and there's some fishy elements to this, and they'll put it together after the fact, and her death kind of lets them do that. I thought it might go that way at one point. I got to keep in mind, you know, not read the book or just watching the show, and, you know, so there was a genuine feeling, you know, when Willis comes to the door and Alan kind of tells him to go away, and he's like, no, Camille's out with her friends, and he's like, all I could think was, wait a minute, he knows she doesn't have friends. So that's what I was thinking. But he notices the car there, and you're kind of hoping for something, like, you know, something that'll make him turn around and go back to the house, because you're really, you know, you're scared for Camille at this point. She's helpless. She can't get to her phone. She can barely walk. It really feels like Adora's got both her and Amma trapped. And the feeling of relief when those flashing police lights, you can see the blue and red light coming in the window, and Adora's reaction is priceless. It's great. That moment it feels great. And do you know what I love about this the most? You know, because obviously Willis comes in, but so does Curry. Frank, her editor, who was really concerned on the phone, and has been concerned. He's been very, very, very much a father figure to her throughout the show. But him come running in, screaming for Camille, really was heartwarming. It was kind of touching, because I think the idea that what eventually saved Camille was the fact that someone cared. Because I think so much of this show is feeling like others don't care about you, feeling that you have these weird connections with everyone else, that you can't build proper relationships. So the idea that there was this person that did genuinely care and was a genuine, you know, a genuine influence in her life, who cared enough to get on a plane and come to the town. Like, he was so worried after that conversation last episode that he came to town. And, you know, he had enough information. He'd heard about Adora over that phone call, enough to know that this was dangerous, enough to get the police. And as we hear later on from Willis, that he basically kicked down the police door, demanding that they go out there. And of course they do, and, you know, there's a satisfaction in Vickery telling Adora that she has to be arrested and to come down the station, and she's like saying, I don't even, you know, Alan at one point tries to stop her from being handcuffed, and it's very kind of like, no, back down, sir. Yeah. Speaking of Alan, like, he has that line with, because again, Vickery, last episode I said how he was, you know, he was kind of curious about Amma being sick, and he asked Alan about it at the barber shop, and, you know, Alan gets kind of saucy here. He's like, oh, there's something going about the house, hope we don't catch it. That's a very, you know, there's some insinuations there by what he's saying. He is clearly implying that Vickery is into his wife and is around too much. That is definitely the sense you get from that comment. And Vickery knows that's what he means, and he's like, hey, stay here and let's talk about this like men. and Alan waffles off, and I think Alan, being kind of a coward who lets everything go by, he might comment here or there, but ultimately he won't really do anything to stop anything. He seems to know what Adora's doing. He's like, go easy on the medicine, and he's like, no, that's your department, I'll stay out of it. I think deep down he does know, and I think that's like, I really, again, it's this idea of Adora having control over everyone around her. But yeah, so like I say, great relief. The idea that Frank came rushing in because he actually cares for her, and there is someone who's looking out for her, and maybe Willis, now, obviously he says sorry afterwards for everything, and he sees the scars finally when they come and get her, and there's that little moment there. But she needed help. She was someone who needed help, and he, instead of recognizing that, got angry because she hurt his feelings. And I think he knows that in this episode, and so yeah, really touched. Everything with Frank, with Camille, was really touching, especially later on when we hear the article, or just the end of the article that she's written about how she's taking care of Amma, and how, has she inherited what her mother had, where she needs to feel like she's needed, or is it out of kindness? And these days I'm leaning towards kindness. Like, that was a really sweet thing. It was this idea that she thinks it's for the right reasons, she hopes it's for the right reasons, and she wants to believe it's for the right reasons. But there is that doubt. There's that seed of doubt, and I guess that's only human. And I think that was a really nice moment. But yeah, so let's talk about so Adora gets taken away. We see a glimpse. She pleads not guilty. We get a glimpse of that. There's this montage of Amma coming to live with Camille in St. Louis, and Alan's left behind at the house. He's not really fighting for her, seemingly, but we see that she's living with Camille. And I thought the episode was going to wrap up soon, and then it kept going. It kept going to the point where I'm like, okay, this happy ending is lasting far too long. There's going to be more to this. To the point where I was kind of worried. I was worried that it was going to try and pull some sort of shock twist, and there is kind of a final reveal, of course, at the end. But I was worried whatever it was going to pull was going to feel cheap. Whatever it pulled was going to feel forced in at the end, to have that final moment before the credits, to really shock us before we leave. However, the shock reveal itself actually works quite well, because of a number of things they've set up, not only in this episode but the entire show. So the final moment. So obviously we see Camille has got Amma living with her, and Amma's even making new friends. She's got a new friend that she's been hanging out with, who even comes to dinner. They're at Curry's house, and they're all having dinner together. But then the mother of this friend comes by Camille towards the end of the episode and says, "Hey, I've not been able to contact her. Do you know where she is?" And she's, "Oh, I think they went to this pool or whatever." And it's after this that Camille goes into Amma's room, and obviously there's the foreshadowing of the photograph falling off the wall, but she goes into Amma's room, and the dollhouse is there, and she notices the little doll is propped up in the window, just like the victim was back in the town, and then notices that the floor, the room in the house that was the elephant ivory in the main house, in this dollhouse is teeth, and we know that the victim's teeth were all taken. And then Amma walks in, and of course the final line is "Don't tell Mama," right? That's the final moment. So revealing that Amma is in fact, because this was actually one of the weird things about the episode for me in the middle, was that it felt kind of odd how sort of tacked on the resolution to the murders was, because it was all about getting to Adora because of what she's doing to Camille, and then proving what she did to Marianne, proving what she's doing to Amma, and it's almost just like, oh, they find the pliers, and it's just kind of like, oh, I guess she killed those girls as well. Like, it's almost just kind of an assumption, an afterthought almost. It didn't feel like there was a big moment that was given to, oh my god, she did that to those girls. That's like way more vicious than, I mean, she killed her daughter, that's vicious, but the murders were very different. Those were very violent and visceral, and teeth pulling out. Like, that was a very different thing. And it felt like it was kind of like, she's denying it, of course, and it felt like it was kind of almost glossing over it. And it didn't ruin anything for me, but I was sort of noticing that, and I was thinking, that's kind of weird. It's kind of weird that we're not really talking about the extreme nature of what she did to those victims. But then at the end here, when we find out it was Amma, which, by the way, there is like a mid-credit sequence showing you her killing the girls in just a couple of quick cuts, and she looks like an absolute freaking psychopath. It's actually a really good performance by Eliza Scanlon. It's very good. But so make sure you check that out, because that was a really creepy couple of quick seconds in the middle of the credits. It's when it switches songs, before it switches to the slower song, and there's like a just a little montage of her killing not only the two girls, but seemingly also the new friend, and that's why she's missing. But if you go back and look at the scenes leading up to this, so we know from earlier in the season, the breadcrumbs are here, that Adora was becoming very friendly with her two friends that ended up dead. And like here, it seems like her new friend was actually starting to like get very friendly with Camille. The idea that Camille's replaced Adora for Amma in terms of the mother figure, in terms of the one who's taking care of her, and this is essentially a jealous rage. Maybe that's simplifying it a little bit too much, but the idea that she's worried that, you know, someone's taken the limelight away from her. Now, of course, with Adora, like, given how messed up she was and given how messed up everything around that was, it wouldn't surprise me if indeed there was kind of like a genuine, she was ignoring Amma in favour of these two other girls who, you know, and that's, you know, what led to the rage. But here, obviously, Camille's not actually paying her more attention. There's a little moment at the dinner table where her friend, I should probably get her name actually, I keep saying her friend, I never quite caught it in the episode, but her friend has like notes written on her hand. You know, and nothing. May, I think it was May. Yeah, nothing like, you know, just not carving like she does, but written in pen. Just like, you know, get milk. That's where the title of the episode comes from. And then there's one that's just, you know, call mum or whatever it was. Like, you know, there's a couple of reminders written on her hand. You know, just like, you know, people do sometimes. And there's this little moment where she sees that and she kind of has like a little smirk. And this is right after May's spoken about how she wants to become a journalist or a politician, and she wants to be a writer and that kind of thing. And there's this little awkward moment, and it's right after this scene that Amma's in bed and she's talking to Camille, who comes in to like say goodnight, and she's like, do you wish I was a writer? And it's like she's feeling jealous, like Camille's making a more genuine connection with someone else that might be more personal than what she has with her. And as much as obviously like Amma turning out to be the killer, she's actually the woman in white, as it were. I think at first glance it feels like it's out of left field, but if you actually stop and think about it, it does add up really well, in the sense that, you know, Camille herself even is worried that, you know, her mother passed her sickness on to her, but it's actually, you know, Amma's also just as susceptible to that, and obviously it's not the exact same thing that her mother did, but in the same way that her mother needed to feel needed and take care of someone, Amma seems to need someone that is the caregiver. She needs that in her life, and she's so strong, such a strong connection to that the minute there's a hint of someone else taking that from her and getting that attention, she acts out. And it does add up with what I was saying the last couple of weeks, where because this show is so much, the core theme of this show is the anger and the rage hidden by women specifically, because they're typically not allowed to show it in the same way that men are considered to, you know, generally are, right? The idea that women are always supposed to act calm, and if they act out of line or they act, it's like, oh, they're hysterical because of this. So typically they intentionally try and keep themselves reserved because they'll be treated differently. You know, if a guy gets upset and angry, they'll say, oh, he's blowing off steam, oh, he's doing this. But if a woman gets angry and screams, oh, she's a hysterical, crazy person, we have to deal with that. There is definitely like a sort of general attitude, and obviously it varies, not everyone reacts the same way, but that is a sort of general societal norm to an extent. And I've been saying for the last couple of episodes that it will make a lot of sense that whoever the killer is this pent-up rage is coming from a woman, because thematically that's what works in the show. And I think that's what happens here with Amma, is that this is because I think, you know, we reveal that Adora is, you know, she has this, of course, and she's always had this, but the idea that she's created someone who's even worse, arguably, than what she is. Not that Adora isn't awful, and not that she isn't still to blame. Like, I would still say she's the core one to blame for all this. Like, she created Amma, right? And if you think back to the show over the course of this season, there's been so many moments where Amma's went from being kind of sweet to being very scary, to being very provocative, to being confrontational. And then seeing those clips in the mid-credits of her strangling one of the victims and just like smiling, like, you know, manically as she does it. I mean, smile's maybe not the right word, but there was definitely like a grin was forming. It felt like a grin was forming, and then there's a sort of the calm moment afterwards where she's looking through the fence. You know, she did this. She has all this pent up rage, and created largely by her mother. This idea of nurture creating this rather than nature, and And again, it ties into the themes of the show, the idea that people in this town keep having these same problems because they keep ignoring them, and it's a never-ending cycle. You know, it's kind of there, and obviously there's the shock for Camille at the end when she realizes this. And it's funny because I think I was worried that it was going to pull out a quick last trick to give us the final shock, but once I stopped and thought about, okay, does this make sense that Emma's the one who's done this? Now, of course, they bring up the teeth being pulled and how that takes more strength, and he mentions an accomplice. It doesn't seem like Adora was an accomplice, just going from that final little bit in the mid credits. Like, it doesn't seem like she was aware of this necessarily, which makes sense why she pleaded not guilty. Although I feel like Adora would plead not guilty anyway. They definitely have her for the murder of her own daughter, that's for sure, and the attempted murder of her other two daughters. So, yeah, it's the idea that, like, Adora created her, and, you know, Camille got out, and she's found other, you know, parental figures. Now, obviously, she didn't meet Curry until she was an adult, but the idea that his influence on her is already so beneficial. Not just that he came in and saved her and always cares for her, but just his influence is already kind of bearing fruit in terms of, you know, who she is and how she responds to things and how she's trying to be better and trying to be more healthy. So no, I think the ending actually works really well. It takes a little bit of thought though. You have to sit and think about all the breadcrumbs that have led to this. Think about Amma and all these different scenes. It is funny to think that we ended up with two killers actually in the end of seemingly separate, you know, deaths. So it's not like it's not like Scream where there's two killers for the one thing. It's like no. We have one killer of one person and we have a killer of the other main victims. But it does make sense to a degree why we focus so heavily on the drama of Camille and her family, because that was really going to be the core of everything by the time we got to the end of the show. And yeah, so it's funny because I feel like the ending, you think I'd have even more to say in the last few episodes, but honestly, you're talking about the conclusion, and there's all these little minutes. There's the scene where they stand off Jackie a little bit when they run into her when they're visiting Adora, and it's worth mentioning as well is that Camille still wants to go see Adora and doesn't seem like she's angry at her when she goes to visit her. And sorry, I meant Amma. I said Camille there, I think. But you know, Amma goes in and doesn't seem upset that she's talking to her. They seem to still have like a pleasant enough conversation in the visiting area, whereas Camille stays outside. She doesn't want to go in. She stays back. She's like, and I like the idea that Camille has truly escaped this, and going back and confronting this, and you know, and catching her mother out and solving this has finally shut the door for her, and she can probably move on and be healthier. And that doesn't mean it'll be gone completely. It doesn't mean that she'll never think about it, but she has successfully closed the door and she can heal now. And I think that's maybe that moment where she notices the writing on May's hand, where, like, I almost said Bay there. God, shudder. God damn, young people speak. So, but no, I think that moment there is kind of this reflective moment for her. But of course, Amma still does care for Adora and does seemingly still want to have some of that connection, even though she's happily shifted. And it also paints into a new light, going back to when Amma's the one who suggested, "Can I come and live with you?" It's like she's trying to shift to Camille in that episode. And now when you know that because she gets this obsessed, because she gets this attached, it has this whole new light. It's kind of like, because I think we were so focused throughout the show of Camille, like, feeling that she needs to protect her sister because she lost her younger sister, because she lost Alice at rehab. We were so focused on what she needs out of this relationship that I don't think we or at least I didn't stop and consider it to the same extent what Amma wants out of that relationship, what her side of this is, that she's determined to have her. And how, I mean, if you think back to the start of the show, almost immediately as soon as she shows up, she's excited about her sister, she wants to bond with her, and Camille's very standoffish, but over the course of the season she kind of, you know, wears her down a little bit. But, you know, it's a thing, it's a whole thing. So, yeah, it's an ending, it works really well, and I feel like, yeah, we don't really need any more. I think this is all you really need of this story. If there is some kind of follow-up, if they're planning something, I don't know what I would want from it, because, I mean, the cast are obviously so good, but I don't know where the story goes from here, or if I want any more story, because it is such a good ending. I mean, what are the routes to take? Like, do you take the route that that Camille doesn't turn her in. That feels like it would betray the development she's had, like choosing that option. When she's finally shut this door, and obviously there's that sweet moment where she turns into the child version of herself again, and her young sister kisses her on the head, and it's like this sweet moment of, again, putting that stuff to bed. And again, obviously all this paints a light on that "you're not safe here" line from the end of episode, I want to say 6 that was. So yeah, you've got all this stuff, and it's I don't know, it's interesting. And hell, actually, just making me think again to Amma and Adora's relationship. One of the things that Vickery said to Willis after they interviewed Keen, which I thought was also a pretty good scene, his reaction to their questioning and finding out there was blood in that house, in that room, which again makes sense later on when we find out that Amma did it. But when they get outside and they're talking about, and the Vickery turns around and says to him, like, "Hey, sorry about Camille, sorry about the Preaker girl," and it's kind of an awkward moment, and she says, "Oh, there's a lot of her mother in there. She loves the attention, but she'll chastise you when you give her too much." And that's interesting, because I think that relates to Amma's story with Camille as well, and the idea that she gave her too much attention back, and then eventually Camille kind of got bored of her, and that's kind of what led to the other girls, and obviously where we went from there. So no, Sharp Objects, interesting show. It definitely had its own type of pacing, definitely had its own sort of focus on the drama. I would say, if I'm going to critique it, I would say it was maybe 1 or 2 episodes too long. I think episodes 3 and 4 probably could have been condensed into one. Because I remember episode 4 being the one where I felt like I maybe didn't want to finish it after that one. And then episode 5 bounced right back. Episode 5 was the one with the party. And that was like so focused, I felt like it was so, everything was like clicking together again. I think 3 and 4 could have happily been condensed into one and cut this down to 7 episodes. That would be my critique of the show. It is definitely a slow burn, and I know Connor always complained in the first few episodes about the sound. I got used to it, the way it had all the ambient sound kind of being really loud. I got used to that as it went on, so it didn't really bother me, but I know that was a problem for Connor. I would recommend this if you like this kind of thing. I would say I can definitely get that this is from the author of Gone Baby Gone. Not Gone Baby Gone, sorry, Gone Girl. Gone Baby Gone is the other Ben Affleck movie. No, Gone Girl, which I really like as well, actually. Gone Girl, I probably like Gone Girl a bit more. I like Gone Girl's like the vicious kind of twist in Gone Girl that I won't spoil. Is an interesting thing. Although arguably you could argue that a lot of the same themes are present in that story. Again, just going from the movie compared to this show, not as opposed to the books, which I've not read, but there's definitely some parallels to the themes of anger and what's hidden and so on. That seems to be Gillian Flynn's forte, is tackling that subject. But yeah, so no, I like the ending. I liked Amma's been so creepy, like here or there for it throughout, and then all the breadcrumbs of the motivation, the hints of how she is with her mother, how she is with her friends, how controlling she is and obsessed she is. All of that added up, and I think it's nice that this revelation comes after Camille is, I don't want to say cured, that feels too simple and kind of disingenuous to actually getting over these issues, but I think Camille's had an arc where she's crossed this turning point where she is genuinely more healthy and she's got a much better chance of getting through life now. I think that scene with the editor Curry where he's read the article, I think she's truly grown as a person and she's been able to shut this door behind her, whereas Amma is not. Amma is still deep in there and she is much worse off for it. She's much worse off than Camille ever has been, and that is the tragedy of the show, and I think that's the sadness in Camille's eyes as she looks over at Amma at the end of the episode, is she's worried that I got out of this, I might be over this now, I might be able to move on and grow, but Amma might not be able to. Amma might be stuck. She's so screwed up. She might not be. I mean that's a bit downer. I mean, anyone can have a second chance. Anyone can heal potentially, but there's a point where you've killed multiple people in such a vicious way that you're not healthy. Your life is never going to be normal after this, right? You're never going to just be a normal person after this. best you can hope for is a pretty good life in the hospital. A medical or a mental institute of some kind, and a lot of therapy coming. So no, but no, I'm really curious to see what everyone else thought of the ending, and how you interpret the various revelations. I think what's funny is Adora, like we kind of built up over the season what she was and who she was and her anger and her, especially the last episode, we really, got who she really was. That I felt like in this one there wasn't a whole lot more to deconstruct with her. It was more just the pure thriller elements, the horror of her getting away with this and doing this to Camille, and the danger and the tension with that, and then the satisfaction of like her being caught. It was much more the plot action side of things with her. But there's a lot more to delve into this one with Amma, and realizing all the little hints throughout the season that have built up to her being the one who did this. The idea that it was just another one. If you remember the scene earlier in the season where Vickery was driving alongside them and said, "You shouldn't be out here, girls. There's a killer on this. He could be dangerous. There's someone dangerous," or something to that effect. And I think it's Amma that said, "or her." It could be a her. And I think it's interesting her knowing that she did it when she says that. As my cat is making noise behind me. So that's the finale though. That is Sharp Objects. So yeah, be healthy, I guess, is my advice. Be healthy, and if you're in a toxic situation with toxic family members, toxic friends, seek help. Don't let it fester, because you might end up a serial killer. Or other such issues. That's been very simple, of course, but that's my advice. So thank you very much. It's been fun tackling this, and we'll find some more stuff. I know that the Deuce, speaking of HBO shows, the Deuce season 2 is coming soon. Me and Connor will be reviewing that together. We like season 1 a lot. In terms of heady HBO, drama, proper adult drama. The Deuce is coming up soon, so you can look forward to season 2 of that. You can get our reviews of season 1, the 8 episodes of season 1. We reviewed that together last year, so you can go and find those as a playlist on the channel. So yeah, and if you listen to the audio feed, if you're on Almost Cancelled TV Reviews, the audio feed, which is one of 2 review feeds, because there's a Netflix one as well for all the Netflix shows. The Deuce season 1 isn't on the audio feed yet, but it will be before season 2 launches, so I can mention that. Otherwise though, get us on patreon.com/MaileFuzzTV. If you like the reviews, if you like the channel and all the other content, and you want to support us, head over there, and you can support us for as little as $1 per month, which helps us out loads, and we would really appreciate it. Plus you get some bonus stuff as well for your troubles. But that is me. So get Mailed Fuzz on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates, and you get me on Twitter at Wibble89. But otherwise, that is me. So thank you once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?